One of the best things about the Fallout games is the modding community that continues to support and make new things for the games even a decade after they're released. Some mods are bug fixes or tweaks to make the games run better. Others add in new weapons or replace textures to make the game look nicer. But then there are the monster mods, the mods that are effectively a fan-made DLC. Can you beat Fallout New California without taking any damage? Unlike a DLC, you don't have to start a new character in New Vegas just to get to New California. Start a new game, choose New California, and your journey begins with a surprisingly well put together cutscene showing the Great War, the basics of what a vault is, and a bunch of dead bodies piled up a few feet from the sand. Getting sand out of a backpack is difficult. Getting sand out of the corner of someone's eye to prepare them for their funeral is impossible. More war stuff happened. We're shown glimpses of the game world, just as you would be in Fallout New Vegas, and gameplay begins with a football game. I chose the path of the warrior because I ain't no fucking nerd. I made the noise in-game of breaking something, but I blacked out before I felt anything break. A character was made to fit the image of someone who isn't me, and dialogue begins with a conversation between myself and Coach John Bragg. Bragg yapped on and on about my future, my past, the vault, and he cleverly surmised that I have a high endurance. He's almost right. I've always prided myself on my ability to take half a punch without bursting into tears. The vigor tester looked cool, lots of blues and yellows. I knew next to nothing about this mod, so I wasn't sure what my special stats should look like. I obviously drained endurance and put points into charisma and intelligence to help with leveling up and hopefully avoiding conflict, luck to boost all skills and critical hits, and agility to give a small boost to my ability to handle firearms. I also chose skilled and trigger discipline as my traits. They're always what I fall back on. I named myself Noodle God, as in like a limp noodle that's a killing machine. This is the second time I've disappointed a coach. The first was in high school when I was so bad at bowling that I wasn't even kicked off the team. The coach just told me that I would never be put in a match, so there wasn't any point to me showing up. He was mad. He kicked me out of his office. Bragg, not the bowling coach. He's dead now, and I feel nothing. I took a look through my Pip-Boy to see what I had. A Nerf football and a special helmet. I insinuated that Jen is an idiot, looked through all the trophies that I'll never have, spoke to Mr. Mop, and wandered around Vault 18. This really looks a lot more like a vault than any of the vaults in Fallout New Vegas did. My task was to report to Lieutenant Chevy regarding a security job. Cliches and whatnot. Turns out, she's not only Bragg's sister, she's also got an eye patch. This mod surprised me. Normally, when you see a skill check, it's like a siren, calling out to you to click on it because it's the right choice, or we'll skip something and save time. Not here. That charisma check is missing a period, by the way. Choose it like I did, throw in a word that I'd never say because I'm a good Christian boy, and that was it. I was on mop duty for life. To make her pay for her crimes, I threw not one but 2 Nerf footballs at her head. They didn't bother her. I think my fist tickled her. Not in the fun way. The next time, I chose what I thought were the right options and got myself a spot in vault security. From her hole, I retrieved a Colt N99 10mm pistol. Back in Bragg's office, I ran through the gambit of dialogue options to get some backstory. Short version is, he's running for overseer, and they're running a drill with the security team tonight to test for their preparedness. I made my way to the lower level apartment. Apparently, I'm the jock, rooming with the board game playing losers. With my pants metaphorically off, I went to bed, rebuilt my character because I'm stupid, reassigned special points as closely as I could to whatever they were the first time. Even now, I can't remember what they were. Upside is, I could reselect my tag skills. I went with speech, guns, and repair. I leveled up twice in the night, raised speech and guns, and watched another cutscene. Bragg and Bragg are up to no good, to no one's surprise. They're taking over the vault by force. An explosion rocked the vault and knocked me out of my bed so violently that I took damage. The sigh I let out when I saw I had to reassign skill points again and watch that cutscene again could have been heard from 50, maybe even 60 inches away. That was a lie. I didn't have to watch the cutscene again, but there was no way to avoid taking damage. I don't think I need to explain why. There's an explosion while I'm in bed. Moving isn't an option. So I made an executive decision, on par with launching nukes at Britain because it annoys me that they put the letter U in the word color. If I can't get through this without taking damage, I might as well enable God mode to survive the explosion. I've already failed. Any damage is a failure. so at this point it doesn't really matter if it's 1 damage or 100,000 damage. After I got up, I returned to the world of mortals and began assessing the damage done to the vault. My roommates are dead. Anarchy is the new rule of law. All things considered, not bad. Officer Mark told me to pass through the upper apartments to get to the Hydro Dome to meet up with the other Hydro homies. Riot shields are an option, but we know from Modern Warfare 2 how horrible they are. Johnny got and repaired his gun. I found Jen. She ignored me, so I shot her in the face. She shot me back and I didn't take damage. Turns out I'd taken buff out, or something, that boosted my health. After I died, I waited in place for many minutes while I went through withdrawal. Tara Mason was concerned that I wasn't in the opening assault, so I followed her into the atrium where many an Enclave patriot were lying unconscious on the floor with bullet holes all over their bodies. Chevy gave me my orders, but she's a monster. I blew off her head with a shotgun. I gracefully ended the suffering of some poor sap who'd been crucified. This Matheson character did his best mime impression, but his best wasn't good enough. I bashed his skull in with a bat, made my way to the upper apartments, dropped off Jen in an apartment, and lost a considerable amount of progress when I died. Her frail body could be an excellent shield should I be assaulted by an unfriendly swarm of bullets, so I let her stay with me while I picked off more Enclave goons, talked to Norman, helped a dead body on its way to heaven, passed through Dr. Rossman's secret cave, he's kind of a big deal, and got word from Chief Paul Evanson that the remaining Bragg brother is about to storm our position. And what a storm it was. There were a lot of Enclave soldiers. One thing I want to point out is that any frame rate issues you may notice aren't a fault of the recording. The mod itself was pretty choppy at times, specifically in areas with a lot of buildings or in combat-heavy situations. Colonel Bragg bragged his last brag. I looted all the bodies, and only one man remained, Colonel Bragg. That's right, I killed him twice. I honest to God have no idea why that happened. Chief Paul then asked me to check on the Overseer. I'll let you in on a little secret. He's a maniac. He saw that the best way to not lose at Monopoly is to pull a gun on the banker. He activated the vault's self-destruct program. But this banker was raised on the streets. He pulled a bigger gun and removed the Overseer's brain from the rest of his body. It's a real shame that the Overseer killed himself like that. All that was left to do was run for the vault door to escape. The elevator carried me towards the surface, but more explosions erupted from down in the vault, damaging my already exposed and muscular back. This time, because damage is unavoidable, I gave myself a fair 150 health to survive the blast, and this fucking idiot made my day by surrounding himself in a ceremonial circle with dead bodies, then lost all of his cool boy points by telling me that his name isn't Ben, his name is Kurtz. Ignore the fact that his name is Ben Kurtz. Together we ran for the exit and found the vault door. Naturally, I massacred everyone else who was waiting to escape the vault with me. The cavern past the vault door seemed a lot more appropriate than most of the small passageways leading to a vault in most of the caves in Fallout New Vegas. And at long last, we were outside. Some guy who just came from the carnival interrupted my running for my life. Thankfully, I was able to convince him to buzz off. Explosions happened behind me, and I couldn't help but think of how good this area looks. Mod reviewers take notice. This is how you review a mod. Ben and I found shelter in a tunnel. Obviously the safest place to be when an almost nuclear blast is about to ravage the landscape. And, surprise surprise, you take damage from the explosion. Again, this damage can't be avoided. A console command gave me health to survive the dust in my face. I set my health back down to 1, and I fled from the radiation with flat nose. Along the way, we discovered Pine Haven and a new NPC, Kira, a bitch with hair like the void of space. The three of us found Dr. Rossman's house on the mountains. I found a buttload of guns and ammo, stuffed them somewhere safe, dressed myself in the cleanest dirty Wasteland clothes I could find, spoke to Kira and Ben, and claimed the only bed for myself. In the night, a band of raiders surrounded the house and were looking for trouble, the board game of course. My options were to open fire on a crowd of people for the 4th time this week, or settle things diplomatic-like. Always the smooth talker, I opted for the option that didn't end in bloodshed. That didn't end well. I got bopped on the nose, fitted with a slave collar, and talked to the store brand Voss. He was trying to compensate for something with that name, L's Dragon. What a nerd. Anyway, he dropped me about 200 feet down into a hole, and I somehow survived the fall, thanks to some really powerful speakers. It's an acoustic net or some shit. Melvin the Voiceless informed me that I was now banished to the darkness. Melvin's a dumbass, and let me convince him to use him and all the other Voiceless as cannon fodder to take on the big one. Inside, Athens Tech, mine level 27, we cleared out a few ghouls. I got to take an up-close look at Festus and examine his raw beauty. I gave a speech, and we marched towards the big one, who is actually a behemoth. They lined up so perfectly as they ran towards their doom. I couldn't resist the urge to kill them all. Then came more, and more, and more, and more, and more, and more. What the Voiceless lacked in usefulness or value to this world, they made up for in numbers. I shot a lot of people. I don't think you quite understand how many people I brutalized. I've said this before and it's always been an exaggeration, but this time I really mean it. I killed an ungodly number of people. Just look at all these bodies. And for every corpse, there was 1,000 more Voiceless ready to take their place. The behemoth was rather tough. He took quite a few bullets to kill. I retrieved the elevator key from his body, and with my infinite army of Voiceless men and women, we stormed our way out of the pit towards the sunlight. I also took one last look at all the Voiceless I killed to remind myself of what the others were dying for, which is my amusement. One last guard stood in our path, Mandrake, an invisible nightkin with a gun. He took all my missiles to die, which was unfortunate. I didn't have any missiles left to use on Dragon and his men. You'd think that with an army of slaves it wouldn't matter, but it did. It took a couple tries to get through them. What I did was lay down a few time bombs, then attack the guards behind me so that the bombs would strategically go off once the carnage came to town. Quite a few more stood between me and the outside world. My trail carbine, that once belonged to someone who was alive, made quick work of them. Kira informed me that she'd been tortured. The people who tortured her think I'm some sort of a genetic freak. I am, by the way. Just wait till the face reveal. You'll see what I mean. I gave her a hunting rifle and a single bullet, and my band of slaves, armed with shovels, took the fight to those surface-dwelling pricks. Escaping their base was far tougher than I would have thought. See this sort of canyon here? I assumed that this was it. It wasn't. Not by a long shot. Speaking of long shots, Rossman's rifle that I'd gotten back in the vault actually had some ammo. It showed 0 of 0 in my Pip-Boy, but I actually had 25 electro charges. These few guys in particular gave me trouble. It's mostly stuff I've dealt with before, pinned behind an object, and basically having to kill each of the multiple targets in one shot without missing or else I die. And die I did. A lot. Once I got the raiders in the immediate vicinity sent to hell to be annoyed by my dead dogs barking forever, I could take inventory of all the weapons their former life vessels had in store for me. My objective was to escape. That was it. And unfortunately, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. With my guns still at 100, the marksman rifle, and sneak attack bonuses, I was able to take out most of the raiders in 1 or 2 shots. Most of what I did was move forward, kill all the raiders I could see, move onward, kill raiders. Sometimes I'd die and have to figure out where they were shooting from, but none of it was very troublesome. Time consuming for sure, but that was pretty much it. At one point I noticed a vertibird, and saw that one of my options was to escape via that metal bird. I figured I'd probably need a high science skill, so I ignored it and ventured onward until I eventually made my way out of the mine. I was out of the pot, but the pot itself was in an oven, so now we're facing more direct heat. Does that make sense? Probably. They had outposts or bases pretty much everywhere. This quarter of the map pretty much belonged to Dragon and his stupid name. Lot of death, both mine and theirs. I took to the rocky hills to avoid as many bases as I could. Saw a school, I think. No kids to kill. I ignored it. And after 45 minutes of shooting, I was barely halfway to my goal. It was pretty much smooth sailing from this point though. There were groups of raiders patrolling the Wasteland. None posed much of a threat. They were about as threatening as a toddler with a toaster. Before long, I found myself at I-15, I-38, Black Bear Junction. A real place that exists. Just take my word for it, don't look it up. Ranger Carey requested my help on a mission. I'll save you some time and tell you now that that mission was a pain in the ass, and it wasn't part of the main quest, so I ran away in many different directions until I didn't get blown up by their mortar fire and eventually arrived at the NCR base. But those sons of bitches wouldn't let me in. Turns out that mission I just ignored had to be done, and it was a real motherfucker of a mission. Here's the situation. There's a raider commander up that hill that needs to be made into a skeleton. There are many multiple raiders, and they have artillery. I'll give it this though. It felt like a full-scale battle. Not like the Hoover Dam where there's like a dozen Legion soldiers atop the dam before you get to the offices. But then it's not really a fair comparison. The raiders here, from what I could tell, were infinitely respawning. So basically what you've got to do is press forward through the infinitely respawning enemies to get through that area, so they'll stop respawning in that area. Then you do it again, and again, and again. As you can imagine, that is not easy when you can't take damage. You could say that it's good because it's free experience and it levels me up, but levels don't really mean anything anymore. Speech is at 100, guns is at 100, repair is at 100, explosive and energy weapons are both getting there. My best weapons can kill most raiders in 1 to 2 shots. Killing for the sake of killing is rude and unproductive. I managed to kill that survivalist commander, that face paint guy from earlier, which got me into a bit of a pickle. A quick save out in the open with multiple people shooting at me and nowhere to go. I got stupid lucky after a dozen or so deaths and got inside the bunker where I could finally destroy the artillery targeting computer, then regroup with NCR Captain Les Jameson. Finally, I could get inside the NCR headquarters, which also felt much more like a base than Camp McCarran did, and meet General Silverman. We talked for a bit. That talk got interrupted by raiders raining down artillery on the base. My body freaked out and tried to hide in the pavement to save itself from the artillery. In response, my brain messed with my perception of reality and allowed me to clip through a door. Then my legs were like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" and locked me in place while my body continued to spasm uncontrollably. Everybody calmed down once I reloaded the game. Once I got to the front lines, I realized what this was. You guessed it, another instance of infinitely respawning enemies that you have to fight your way through until you kill the big bad guy and the bullies leave me alone. The first time, this was a cool idea, something you don't really see in Fallout. Second time, it was a little repetitive. Now it's just annoying. A solid chunk of what's being thrown at you are raider slaves with no armor and only melee weapons, so they die in a single shot that you probably won't miss unless you forgot to put on your GameStop branded gamer glasses that your grandma got you for Christmas because she knows you liked to play those computer games. With the commander or whatever the fuck dead, I reported back to Silverman, who gave me a new mission, trekking across the Wasteland to both restore their power and fix their water situation. Before heading out, I spoke to Senator Paul DeVille, who offered me big money to do things his way instead. I lost interest around the time he opened his mouth for the first time because his voice just annoys me so much.
Yes, if Silverman has his way, but a war isn't what Congress wants. The people need this stalemate to go on just a little bit longer.
I bet this is what most people think when they watch one of my videos for the first time. I also stopped by the gun runners to sell the stuff I didn't need. Some weapons looked cool. They had 1911s and M4s and those sorts of things. The only weapon I bought was an L96A1 because it did more damage than any of the snipers I had. With my weapons assigned to hotkeys and more bullets than you can comprehend hidden in my purse, I set off for the power fix replace. I killed some geckos and a few raiders on the way there. Arrived at the power plant, predictably had to defend the place against a horde of savages who conveniently started their attack right when I got there. The one good thing I'll say about this is that it sounded ominous as fuck with all the savages screaming. The savages themselves were just like raider slaves and weren't in any way a threat. With the power restored, my next stop was across the world to restore power to Union City. That's the NCR headquarters. Some chick in a sand crawler told me I'd better get up to her position because another horde of raiders is about to attack. I didn't even bother fighting. I pretended to be a parent at Chuck E. Cheese and just left her to her own devices. Maybe she lives, maybe she dies, I don't care. About 10 minutes later, I found the California tribe who sent me to their chieftain, Raz Auga. That's his real name. He said the water is a ghost being guarded by spirits and that I had to wake it up. Or I could just haul 90 cases of water across the continent. Thankfully, I saw the potential for manual labor in a vision, and I knew I wasn't going to do it. I put some points into science when I leveled up, and used that power along with a magazine filled with pictures of trees and sexually suggestive poses to turn on the generator and wake up the ghost, which turned out to be a hologram of Dr. Rossman. I used the skills I'd learned during kindergarten show and tell to show him my Pip-Boy from the vault and convince him to help me. He did his see-through magic to get the water working. I took all the credit by cranking the wheel, survived another ambush outside the cave, and returned to General Silverman to let him know my job was done. My next mission was to join Captain Jameson in a quest to take over Fort Daggerpoint. Senator Paul bribed me with the prospects of having millions of dollars. I got a Steam key to Daggerfall from some bounty hunter, and I told Jameson that I'd meet him at the fort. Here's the thing about that. I didn't. What happened is I told Jameson I'd meet him at the fort. I just told you that, but I thought you might have forgotten, so I had to say it again. The issue is that my only map marker was Jameson himself, not the fort, and for some reason I couldn't for the life of me find a map for this mod to figure out where to go. At first I thought, alright, I'll just wait for a day. That'll teleport him to the fort and I can head there. Nope. I waited for days and days and days, and when I checked where he was maybe 50 feet outside the gate. I had to follow that fucking prick all the way there, across the entire map, again. My only trick was waiting in 1 hour chunks to make him go a bit forward. It took a solid 30 minutes to get to the fort. There were a couple instances of combat here and there, nothing particularly crazy. There were a few raiders guarding the outside to the fort. Inside the fort were some tough cookies. Multiple sentry bots guarding something. It took an L96A1, guns at 100, and a sneak attack to be able to kill a sentry bot with a single shot. With all the robots cleared out, I checked the weapons lockers and found a fat man and mini nukes that I couldn't even use, and Jameson informed me that my companions that I forgot even existed were being volunteered against their will to help move debris out of the tunnel. I had to go it alone. That was a sign that something nefarious was about to happen. The second sign was being told to explore the Fissure of Sorrow. It's probably about as fun as the Pit of Torment or Chambers of Unending Pain. It was a trap. There were mutants there waiting for me. I know that because Vigor the Gatekeeper literally told me it was a trap. Then things got weird when he said I'd make a gorgeous addition to their collection. Long story short, he wants to melt my body down, turn it into a milkshake, and dump it all over his naked body. At first, I didn't want to be a milkshake, so I pulled out a missile launcher and blasted them all. Vigor was probably the toughest thing in the game, taking the impact of multiple high-explosive missiles like they were nothing. Alternatively, you can call down a missile from the sky with your mind to kill him and get launched into a wall, but that does damage, so it's not an option. I spent a while killing him and his fellow mutants behind the overturned trucks. Once he dies, my objective becomes escape Fort Daggerpoint. Problem is, mutants and ghouls spawn infinitely in the single path I have out of there. Remember those failed FEV subjects from Vault 87 in Fallout 3? Those are here too, and they're just a delight to look at. They're as pretty as they are tough. Soon it dawned on me that fighting my way out wasn't an option, so I agreed to go with Vigor on the condition that I'm allowed to say no, but I probably won't because of the implication. Another sign of bad tidings this holiday season was Project Brazil experimental complex in a neon sign on the wall. I got blinded by a white light and woke up in some sort of cell chamber hole. The way he said the Project Brazil parasite inside me allowed me to survive my own mortality made me think that this was the game's way of explaining why I could respawn. Or not. I'm not a big smart. He recognized my superior intellect when I told him I play Roblox, and allowed me to ask questions before my transformation. I had the option to leave, maybe, but I didn't take it. I knew what my destiny was. I've always wanted to drown in thick, green goo that melts away my skin and modifies my existence on a molecular level. I dove in headfirst, and the game revealed what happened. It was my body that allowed a new type of mutant to manifest itself and take over the globe for thousands of years. Then, no joke, a giant eyeball flies out into fucking space. That was the dumbest thing I've seen in my life, and I love it. And with that, I did not beat Fallout New California without taking any damage. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server through a link in the video description. Thanks to the Champion tier supporters, as well as other channel members, for making videos like this one possible. Follow me on Twitter @Mitten Squad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.